and Notley showed up in Pincher Creek. We had less than 24 hours notice as a community.
Wow.
That they were coming to announce the establishment of a provincial park within the Castle Wildland Park, which had already been established under the previous government. There was a lot of opposition to basically being railroaded and misinformed on the whole process. I personally know a number of the stakeholders who sat at the stakeholder committee table. I've heard a lot of their grievances firsthand. I got involved in an organization that grew out of our frustration called CARMA, the Castle Area Recreational Management Alliance, before
Gotcha.
I got involved with the AOHVA. We made fairly desperate attempts to get it known far and wide that recreationalists in Alberta were basically getting blindsided and having historical opportunities that we've been doing in this province, using the backcountry, teaching our kids to enjoy the backcountry, basically taken out from under us without any meaningful consultation at all, coming from the stakeholders that were representing some of the user groups in this province.
So that's kind of today. What happened, let's say 5 years ago? There was a plan that happened. There's a lot of meetings that went on.
Yeah.
A lot of data was collected. I know personally a lot of clubs and groups have submitted their trail maps, everything they worked on. So all that information was out there, and then what happened with it?
So the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan came out of 5 years of public consultation with Albertans, and all Albertans, environmentalists, grazing associations, industry, oil, gas, logging, the ski hills that are present in different places in the province. They all sat in and actually had an opportunity to give input over that 5-year process. There were public meetings in 14 different rural communities, as well as the major centers in southern Alberta, to get input from all Albertans on what they wanted to see on public lands, how they wanted to manage cumulative effects, what they would be willing to sacrifice and what they wouldn't. Out of that came the South Saskatchewan Regional Management Plan, and it included off-highway vehicle use. It included quads, dirt bikes, side-by-side, snowmobiles, hiking, hunting, camping, fishing, every recreational activity, photography, mountain climbing. All of those activities were included in some capacity in the original South Saskatchewan.
Which was 5-6+ years ago.
Yeah, and it came out under the previous government. When the NDP government came in, they began a new round of consultations, primarily with the environmental lobby, and we had a radical change in what was introduced specifically for the castle. They redrafted the castle plan for the Castle Wildland Park, and it talked.
This is our current government.
The current government. This was announced the 18th of January in Pincher Creek, with less than 24 hours notice to the community, like I said before. We didn't get to see the plan. The stakeholders were promised a look at it before it came out. That never happened. The stakeholders were livid when it did come out, and they did have a look at it because they had never given their consent on the plan. They had never agreed to what was in the plan.
Basically, they're blindsided by what said was going to happen, and all of a sudden they were just
the meetings were to give input and develop a plan and come to some agreement, which has been done historically. Like I said, my dad sat on a committee that did that in the 80s with a number of stakeholders, and they developed a plan, trail by trail, canyon by canyon, area by area, so that there was an understanding of what would be permitted, what would not, areas that were sensitive that would be removed from certain types of access or at certain times. So that's what these stakeholders were expecting from this government. What they got was a very different outcome. They said, well, we sat and listened to you. But they didn't actually listen. They didn't take in what they said. They didn't listen to the evidence they brought forward or the science they brought forward. And this government came out with a plan at the first stakeholder meeting for the castle area. The moderator said, I think we should be phasing out off-highway vehicles in 3 to 5 years. Oddly enough, when the draft was released, that is exactly what's in the draft. So nothing was taken from the stakeholders and input into the plan. They just ran ahead with what they had.
I'm sure all these groups were extremely frustrated, and I'm sure they ran to their representatives and they were saying, what's going on, guys?
Well, and not just frustrated because they weren't given an opportunity to actually have input before the plan came out, but because they were told they would have an opportunity to look at it and give it criticism before it came out. That never happened. The stakeholder group met separately from the ecological working group, which was essentially 10 or 12 environmental lobbies, small ones, the Castle Crown Wilderness Coalition, up to CPAWS, the Sierra Club, the Yellowstone to Yukon Initiative. And they essentially handed the government what they wanted to see for this little corner of the world. We fought it tooth and nail. It's still not in legislation. It's still just a draft. There has been no solid changes in access. There have been some seasonal closures because of fire bans and things like that in the castle this year. But the most recent document that came out from the NDP government is basically 88 pages that heavily supports exactly what they said they were going to do in this draft.
And then for NDP government, basically our representative kind of for saying what happens off-road. So that would be Shannon Phillips, I believe, from what I've heard.
She's Environment and Parks. There's a separate minister for Tourism and Recreation.
Okay.
This kind of falls outside of it because everything they're talking about is wildland park, provincial park.
Gotcha.
Some of the public land use zones in Alberta that have traditionally been used. So they call the North Livingston, which is essentially everything north of the Crow's Nest Pass, west of Highway 22, all the way up to Kananaskis country, and then the Porcupine Hills, which is a very popular recreation area for Lethbridge and Calgary.
Gotcha.
It's very accessible.
Good. I don't want to interrupt you. We totally forgot to thank some of our sponsors for the show. So we're going to go back in here. Russ, come in closer with us.
Get in there.
Yes. People want to see you. I guess you're worthy of the internets. So one of our first sponsors here that helped us out is Pro Action Suspension. They help motorcycles, ATVs, quads, all that kind of thing. So if any suspension work you need, if you need to get your dirt bike resprung, any leaky seals, we've even heard that they work on truck shocks for the Fox shocks if you guys have that stuff. So Pro Action Suspension can help you out. We have MRSI. So MRSI is a huge sponsor for many off-road activities, for many dirt bike clubs that have been around in Alberta for the last 10 years. They sponsored heavily in a lot of events to make sure that we have tents, proper equipment, safety equipment, all our races. And they do a great job in basically supporting internationally a lot of racers that go out and represent Canada. So we'd love to thank them. And with the GhostRidersClubs.com, they love to promote our races, dirt bike news, and help other racers out there to basically enjoy our off-road. And they do a lot of trail design as well, so we like to thank them for that. So thank you to our sponsors to help us out. And Russell, we're going to go back to basically our minister and the consultations and things that happen with that. Right now, who does the minister and consult, basically get information and input? What companies do they look at?
The Minister of Environment is Shannon Phillips. She's one of the Lethbridge area MLAs. This is kind of her baby, and Phillips is, or Notley's on board with it as well. Mm-hmm. So it has been impossible for the dealers in Lethbridge to get in contact with her. She won't answer her door at her constituency office. There have been people banned from her Facebook page for making comments that don't support what she's doing. There's been a lot of things happening that don't sound very democratic in terms of, I would like to have say.
Our free speech is being silenced kind of on the one medium that we all use.
It's one thing to have a conversation with somebody and they say, sorry, I don't agree with you, but it was nice to talk to you. Yeah. It's another thing for that person to say, nothing. I'm not going to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, which is what the stakeholder groups really felt happening in certain.
And a lot of times in our age, like we're right now here on Facebook, I'm sure it's all over the world. We've had people tune in and they're asking about it. Facebook is our medium now.
Yeah, social media, and one of the huge concerns we had when this was introduced is how do we get the twice-a-year camper, the guy who brings all his kids out once a year to the forestry, how do we get him informed about what's happening out there? And it's still shocking when somebody talks to you and goes, they're doing what? They have no idea what's happening, not only in our little corner down in Castle there, but the North Livingston, the Porcupines, and now all the way up to west of Edmonton here. So like I said, there's a lot more people suddenly aware of what's taking place because they're moving all the way up to public land use zones in Alberta.
And for basically all the information that's getting out, it's hard for us to kind of get our opinion out, the facts out for us. There's a lot of different ideas that are going around that we don't really agree with or are wrong, that aren't being corrected. Just me alone, like our Facebook and everything that pops up, even on, like, I listen to CBC radio all the time. I hear Y2Y and Love Your Headwaters always pop up on there. And to me, I think that's unfair that these groups are being represented and we're kind of being silenced, and we don't even get the chance to, have our say.
The Y to Y, or the Yellowstone to Yukon initiative, is an organization that essentially would like to see everything from Yellowstone to Yukon preserved against logging, industry, oil and gas, mining, many types of motorized recreation. They seem to be quite happy to have, you know, ski hills and national parks and things like that. But when it comes to something that doesn't meet with their own personal goals, they're advocating quite hard to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Gotcha. And guys, since this is live on Facebook, you guys are watching, we want you to comment down below if you have any questions, concerns. Have you guys heard about the closures that are going on? Is this a surprise to you? Who have you tried to contact? What are the different ways that you've tried to basically get in the know and find out what's happening in your areas? Tonight we're talking about the closures that are coming up. Right now, Castle has been turned into a provincial park.
A portion of the wildland park, which was expanded over and beyond what it was under the previous government, is seeing potential restrictions under the draft, and there's a provincial park in the center of it.
So what do we have in Castle before, say a year or 2 years ago, and what's happening right now in Castle?
So what we had under the previous government and the establishment of a wildland park was the ability to have greater enforcement powers to deal with the reckless disregard for nature that none of us can really tolerate. They brought in 11 new enforcement officers from K-Country South, and they were starting to at least have a presence and make a change in terms of being present, having some enforcement, doing some education, letting the people who are completely oblivious to how to look after the wilderness learn a little bit from the enforcement officers before they get fined and jailed and all the rest for it. Under the new draft, they're there to enforce all of the same regulations, but they now have a provincial park in the center of that. A provincial park doesn't work with off-highway vehicle use. A provincial park doesn't work with hunting and fishing. Yet they're saying we're going to still have some OHV use in the draft. We're going to phase it out. We're still going to have some hunting, but I guess we'll have a new permit system. This fall, after the second day of hunting season, they came out with their new firearms permit that you had to carry within the park. It wasn't even prepared beforehand.
So this it's not just OHV users. It's going to affect fishermen, hunters, all sorts. Like, they use ATVs, and a lot of them are aging, and you know, basically they want to get around too.
Well, you look at somebody like my dad who's had 2 hip replacements. His ability to recreate and enjoy the wilderness that he used to hike in, ride a horse in, pick berries in, all the things he's been doing his whole life are fairly limited unless he's on a piece of off-highway vehicle equipment, whether it's a side-by-side or an ATV or a snowmobile. So I guess the Y to Y doesn't want anybody with limited mobility using the wilderness. They don't want anybody who makes too much noise using the wilderness. They're using some, not Y to Y specifically, but the government and their draft and the way that they've written what they've got going there, they're using lineal footprint disturbance. They're using some numbers. They're citing a bunch of scientific studies, a bunch of peer-reviewed scientific studies talking about the density or footprint of trails in an area. There's some magic numbers they throw out there. I spent 6 months this summer going over 1,400 pages that came out of the ecological working group. They provided the science to the government as part of the draft. And every single body that put information into that, whether it was an NGO, a non-government organization, an environmental group, whether it was a government policy or plan, or whether it was a scientific journal, they all recognize the importance of looking at usage on a lineal disturbance on a trail. So,
we have a lot of people in the studio. Everyone's getting a little excited. If everyone could just turn your cell phones off, throw them outside, whatever you got to do. We love that you're checking the feed out live, however you're here, so you don't have to be looking at your phone. Good. So with access, a lot of people need to go out and they need to use these trails, hunter, fishermen, and everything. OHVs, ATVs, side-by-sides, like, they do their part in cleaning trails up, making them safe for everyone. I know, like, when I go out and we do just maintenance on quad trails, we carry chainsaws with us, ATVs carry chainsaws with us, and basically there's a lot of wind-blown areas that happen in Alberta across the province, and that is huge. If we didn't have these machines readily available to us in a lot of these areas, they would just get overblown, they get forgotten, and I don't think you'd really be able to walk through them.
And another important area is for search and rescue purposes. I've been involved in search and rescue in that area for nearly 20 years, and if somebody breaks a femur in the woods,
they need access to get
with
that guy
80k winds or in a storm, You can't land a chopper and rescue somebody. You need to have equipment that can access that. Waterton Park uses ATVs to access backcountry under rescue situations. They're that important. They can't go in on horseback. They can't go in on chopper.
And on that, with the fires, there was ATV riders that actually came across one of the wildfires. It was in Alberta, I believe.
It was in the Castle Wildland Park,
Yeah.
and they spotted it early and bucketed out with their helmets or whatever they had on.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like if you walk in and you bike in and you see something serious, you need to be able to get out fast.
Right.
And you know, there's only certain ways you can get out of forest so quickly. Walking, not so great.
Yeah.
So excellent. Guys, we're going to take a little break. We're going to get our next guest. Allison Parsons with CycleWorks is going to join us. She's going to talk to us about her business, or sorry, CycleWorks' business, and how they work in Alberta, and basically how the bans and fire bans, upcoming bans, might affect their business. So we'll be right back. Okay, guys, we are back. I have Allison Parsons of CycleWorks Calgary. Thank you for coming and joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us a little about CycleWorks and what they do in Alberta.
CycleWorks is a very large dealer. We have 6 locations across Alberta, Edmonton and down sort of thing. They've been in business for over 30 years, a Calgary location for 12. We sell dirt bikes, ATVs, UTVs, snowmobiles, and street bikes, so we kind of cover it all. We do 60% of our business in off-road.
Awesome. So last year was one of the driest years we had in Alberta.
Yeah.
We had a well-needed ban that came across basically the entire province. Anything south of the Saskatchewan River was banned. You weren't allowed to be there with any ATVs, UTVs, dirt bikes. You weren't allowed to have a campfire, anything like that. I felt there was a massive slowdown in our province of just everyone couldn't do anything this summer. They were basically stuck at home. You know, camping is a huge part of our province and our culture. So how did that kind of transition back to your store?
So I think that it's important to remember that during that ban, we had the implication that these areas would open up again. So we saw a little bit of a snippet of what it would be like to lose these areas, but it was never in stone. It was never solid. We weren't losing them for good. So the window that we had was that kind of, it was over 4 weeks. It was just about 6 weeks, actually, if I recall. And that was sort of tough for everybody. I think we were down 40% over one of the months that we could calculate. So the business impact was quite large. And again, that was coming back to the fact that it would eventually be open again. So we can't even imagine how much we would drop if these areas were no longer available to us.
Okay. So a lot of people came to your store and they saw the ban was going on. How did they hear about it?
A lot of people actually didn't know until we told them ourselves, but some people did hear about it on the radio. Other people, kind of word of mouth sort of thing. And to our understanding, there were people going around the campsites letting people know that they needed to vacate with their off-highway vehicle.
Okay. And then, Russell, you said earlier on that all of Alberta, or southern Alberta basically, had a huge hit when the bans hit Castle, and those businesses down there, like tons of people are down there and they have all these small businesses. How were they affected when that ban came in?
A prime example is the Little Beaver Mine store. If you've ever been to the castle, you come south of Pincher Creek or from the Crow's Nest Pass, you turn on the highway that leads into the ski hill, and the last community is Beaver Mines, and they got a 3-pump gas station and a convenience store and cold beer and everything else you need for camping. And they were in a bit of a concern about the traffic just dying off. You know? There were still a few hikers, there were still a few people that were non-motorized access, but when it was shut down completely, little organizations, little businesses like that definitely suffered. It's tough to know that means that guy's got less money to spend maybe at your business, whether it's clothing store or whatever else. There is a huge trickle-down effect. The Karma group I was involved with did a survey early on in this whole process in the castle, and the number we came up with, if you just removed OHV and random camping from the castle, was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It was absolutely astounding what the southwest corner of the province would suffer if that was a permanent thing.
And that's just one smaller area in southern Alberta.
And that was based on volunteer participation in the survey. People that said, hey, I come down this many days, this is what I spend. That didn't include the people that we didn't catch in that survey. It didn't include the mom and pop that are only out there once that didn't even know about this thing. So it wasn't all encompassing. So it was just a glimpse at what is potentially going to happen.
So we're kind of seeing a little trend that's happening is people aren't getting informed. They're not really, this isn't on the media all too much. We see more of the Kardashians and all this stuff than what's happening here in our province. AOHVA has a website that they can get informed with a lot of information, a lot of documents on there, all the planning that's going on. Everyone at home, if you're on your phones or on your computer, check out the AOHVA.com. They have lots of information on there. We're going to continue to say basically how can people get in there? How can they get their opinion once again if they're just tuning in?
Well, again, AOHVA is your representative, your lobby group in government, and then they've been working very hard to come up with solutions to the problems, not to eliminate user groups, but to deal with the concerns. Are they environmental concerns? Are they noise concerns? So they have an excellent 4-point plan, and it's on their website, and they are begging the government to pay attention to it and to come look at it and to see what we as users have to say. Yes, we accept this. This is a fantastic idea. We can all work within this. There's a Love Your Trails program that's out there. It's fairly new. If you want to have a say, if you want to get informed, go to the AOHVA, have a look at that 4-point plan. Decide whether those are things that you can agree with and that's what you want to see. Get behind it, sponsor it, send that to your MLA. It doesn't matter whether they're NDP or Wild Rose or Conservative. Talk to your member of government, whether it's municipal or provincial, and make sure that you have a say. Take your kids with you. Express your concerns to those people. Make sure that you let them know that this is going to have a huge impact on your quality of life, on your ability to enjoy the outdoors, on your ability to teach your kids an enjoyment of the outdoors, the history that you had with your grandfather camping at some place or your father camping at some place that a lot of us are trying to pass on to our children. Make sure that this gets said. It's more important that we as Albertans can continue to recreate in a way that we've all agreed upon, which we had under the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan prior to the NDP government. We had a 5-year consultation that came up with an excellent plan. Let's go back to that. Let's get away from the environmental lobby group plan that's being imposed in the castle now, that's moving its way north to the Porcupines, that's moving its way north into the Livingston, and that's creeping its way up into Bighorn and these areas that are far and away from me, but a lot closer to a lot of people who are listening to this.
Okay, and we have a map here. It's actually from Yellowstone, Yukon. So everyone hears this name, and basically they have a huge voice here in Alberta, and they have a map here. Actually, we'll fade in here. So this map on the left-hand side will kind of explain to everybody here. We're going to zoom up and down. So the green is protected lands, and the yellow is conservation lands. So 1993 is going to be on your left side of your screen, and on the right side of the screen is going to be 2013. So basically, this shows kind of the progress of how much it is affecting. So now on your left side of the screen, this is 1993. As we scroll over, you'll see it's a significant change that's happened in 2013, and it's still growing. Absolutely. It's not slowing down. And a lot of this is happening without consultation of Albertans, recreational users, OHV. It's not being proper.
If you have an environmental or an ecological stakeholder group meeting separate from the stakeholders, the users, the taxpayers in this province, there is no opportunity for discourse. There is no opportunity to say what you're saying is absolutely false. The documents you're providing to prove what you're saying come from a study in the Netherlands. Some of the information the Ecological Working Group put forward in the Castle has to do with Australia, with 4x4 Jeeps in the desert.
And I've read it, and the references are like from 1993, 1997.
It's valid science that was done by somebody somewhere. But is it applicable to our eastern slopes, to our recreation areas here? Or is it being rammed in? You know, protect your headwaters is a pretty nice slogan. Well, geez, the headwaters must be at risk if these people are talking about it. They're putting millions of dollars into ad campaigns or tens of thousands of dollars into ad campaigns to get the average Albertan worried their drinking water supply is at risk because of a dirt bike crossing a high elevation dry stream bed in August. And it's really hard to counteract that with anything. You fearmonger, you get that tactic in there that, oh my God, it's going to affect our water.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a lot of people who aren't on the fence about it, they don't know anything one way or the other, are going, well, we should really get rid of whatever's causing the problem.
When these closures come in, more businesses are affected. Allison, how many people does CycleWorks employ?
As a company, we employ over 100 people.
And then you're just one business out of the thousands that are affected with, like the ban affected your business, I'm sure. So
yeah, absolutely.
How did that affect your sales?
Well, we were down about 40% for that month that I actually could collect data for a full month that the closure was on for. I'm aware of 2 Southern Alberta dealers that actually closed after the ban. It maybe had something to do with the economy as well as the lack of business for that month. Very tough to weather for a smaller business. As well as that, you know, we also support other jobs in terms of distributors, manufacturers. We do as much of that in Canada as we can. So it definitely has a trickle-down effect.
I'm sure a lot less gas was being sold as well.
Absolutely.
So all these small shop or gas stations, everything from all the way to Nordegg, was basically affected.
Tourism in general, I think, was affected very strongly, which is a part of our
Alberta's
economy,
a very strong recreational province.
Absolutely.
We're oil and gas, 100%. OHV use, you know, everyone has a quad, they have a snowmobile, they have a dirt bike, and it's family driven. A lot of these machines gets families together because there's different ways they can go enjoy the outdoors. And to us, that's very important to me as a culture that we have in Alberta.
Yeah, it's not only an economic impact, there's definitely a social impact there too.
Excellent. And then AOHVA, I would like you to talk about your new logo that you have coming out. And basically the new campaign that is going to be pushing towards your Love Your Trails here.
So I can speak to it a little bit. Like I said, I'm in a different committee than what formed this, but I'm definitely behind this. It's basically, it's a slogan that all recreationalists, responsible recreationalists can get behind. It's not just about whether you got wheels and a motor. And I've been an advocate for responsible recreation my entire life since I was in university. I stood up in front of 400 people and told them that even the guys with the big 4x4 mud boggers should be able to go out there. Give them a quarter section of land, make them responsible for it, make them accountable for the consequences, make them reclaim it. No different than we do to the industrial service.
And I know in Kukunuso, they drain the lake there. They have a massive bog just in the bottom, and that was an old town that was flooded. I'm not sure how long ago, but probably almost 100 years. And people go down there and they go down there. That's a place for them to go enjoy.
There's probably environmentalists rolling over in their soon-to-be graves right now just talking about this.
Cool. So we just had a question come in. Kristen Nicole, any templates available for letters to the MLA? They are getting websites and templates set up for you. On the AOHVA website, there are links and phone numbers that you can call. There's a phone number you can call to ask for the office of Shannon Phillips, have your opinion, say, hey, I want to talk about this. A lot of times, get on Facebook and do a video, do something like that. There's so many emails that are going out. They don't have a lot of time to look at them.
After the announcement of the draft that came out in January, they extended the consultation period from 30 days to 60 days, which is not enough time to really even get people educated about something that's happening, let alone time to formulate a response and get your opinion out there and figure out how to have it said. The lead parks planner for the Castle Parks got 17,000 documents and emails in 60 days. That's why it took them months.
How can you how many? There's 2 people maybe filtering through all these comments,
and that's to do with one little corner.
Gotcha.
So I mean, it was an overwhelming response, and it's very polarized. There are a lot of people who support the Y2Y and advocate for all the things they talk about, the loss of access for a huge number of Albertans in a variety of different user groups, which is the part that really affects me the most. It's excluding so many people for the privilege of so few.
Exactly. And with that, the AOHVA, they're trying to push this 4-point plan that's coming out. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how it's going to affect Alberta and what it exactly is meant for?
So it's their response to what the government is doing. They're saying, hey, listen, we can solve the concerns by addressing them specifically rather than closing areas. It's pretty easy to lock a gate and kick people out. So again, I'm not going to go into detail on it. I've read it. I wasn't part of formulating it, but I'm fully behind it in terms of what they're suggesting. Again, it's responsible recreation. It's making sure that there's a commitment to look after what we're using. And that's what responsible recreationists have been doing for decades, for generations.
Awesome. And on Facebook, if you guys look, we have a screen up. This is the AOHVA.com. This is the 4-point plan they have. And this framework, basically, that we are proposing, or AOHV are proposing, is going to help everyone enjoy our recreation and our mountains, in a responsible way.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that as motorized recreationalists we've been doing since the 80s. They say, hey, listen, we think this is a sensitive sheep habitat, and we have valid reason for asking no motorbikes, no quads to be in there during these months. Motorized recreational groups are the first ones to acquiesce to that and say, okay, yeah, we can see why you want us to do that. We'll make sure we stay out for that particular time period, or maybe we close this trail. One of the things when they developed the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, there was a mandate in there that any change that was made had to be revisited after 5 years. And if they suggest, for example, closing trails to all off-highway vehicles, they revisit that in 5 years. If the reason for closing that was to improve elk habitat, and after 5 years, the elk haven't come back, there's been no improvement, there was things in place that basically said, here's what we want to do, here's we're going to check and make sure that it happened, and if it didn't happen, maybe we didn't need to do this in the first place. I don't think this government's going to follow through with that under the changes they've made to the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. They had to amend the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan to bring in the new park, to change the boundaries on the wildland park. So they amended an existing document to suit the way they wanted to manage it.
And it wasn't for the groups that are actually using these areas per se.
It was a good plan that under 5 years of consultation, every Albertan had a voice, and those voices were measured and weighed, and the outcomes that came out of that were as good of consensus as you could get among all the different users.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Great. Okay, guys, we're going to take a short little break here. Next up, we have the Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders. They're going to talk to us about all the things they do off-road with their trail systems and engineering that they do to help everyone enjoy the Rocky Mountains in a fun and enjoyable way. Okay, we're getting tired. We're going to be right back. Hey guys, we're back with the Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders. I have Jeff Jilgs. Is that pronounced that correct? And
Mike Dobovich.
So you guys are with the Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders. Tell me a little bit about your club and kind of what you guys do.
Well, we're a club based out of Calgary, Alberta. We represent about 450 members. We've been around since 2004, primarily focused on off-road motorcycle opportunities. We really try to create an outlet for people, whether they want to help with our land advocacy initiatives or just come out for one of our club rides on Wednesday night in McLean Creek. We're probably unique in the fact that we actually are heavily involved in land advocacy and trail maintenance. We actually have a right to maintain the trails in McLean Creek, as well work elsewhere, and we've been involved for years in government.
So doing this process obviously takes a lot of money. Tell us a bit, pretty much how you guys fundraise and get funding for all these projects that you guys do.
No, sure. Well, the organization's been around for, as Jeff mentioned, since 2004. So we've been doing a lot of the land advocacy type work since that inception in 2004. We've been working at some of the federal as well as provincial grants that came available to us through the Alberta Off-Highway Vehicle Association, the NOVAC, the NOHV. Federal funding that came about. I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head.
NOVAC, is that they have like a training basic seminar or?
Sorry, I meant to say NTS. NTS funding was some of the national trail funding that came to us over the course of the year. So we've spent, as an organization, hundreds of thousands of dollars on infrastructure projects and development of trails across, as you see in some of the pictures up here.
We'll bring them up right now for you. So tell us a little bit about this photo. So Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders, you guys are given permission from the government. You guys have a plan that you guys propose to them on trail system.
Sure. So in McLean Creek, we actually have a recreational site agreement where we signed with the government back in a number of years ago, just after the club was formed, where we started working with them when they developed the actual public land use zone that is McLean Creek. And we took over the responsibility of maintaining the trails there, as well as developing the infrastructure that you see there. So this is one of our trail days that was put together. I can't remember which exact one this was. We do a number of these throughout the year. We bring organized a number of trail days, bring a trail captain out and some equipment, and depending on the type of
and as I can see here, this looks like someone's kids out there on the trail helping out. Looks like a little guy checking out what's going on. So that's kind of neat that you get them involved, and they understand and they're taught at a young age, that riding safe and riding smart and don't go in the rivers, things like that is key to enjoying the outdoors.
Well, stewardship is one of the prime directives of our club. We try to teach people to recreate responsibly. We've actually postponed our rides and events, including the race that we host in the Alberta series, due to weather. None of our group wants to be responsible for damaging the trails that we're then later going to have to fix.
It's also hazardous for riders too, so you want to kind of keep that more enjoyable for them as well.
Absolutely, again, we create these outlets and look at these rides when we're working throughout McLean Creek to see what needs to be done, where's the greatest area that needs attention, and we tend to spread it around and do what we can.
So we'll go through a couple photos here. So this is this looks like a Hunter Valley staging area. It looks like that, or McLean, that you guys kind of go to. So you guys kind of do like a group ride where everyone goes together and checks things out. Yeah,
on Wednesday nights throughout the summer, we'd have rides where we often see 40 to 50 people come out for a ride. On the weekends, we'll have several trail maintenance days scheduled throughout the year, where the focus is just less riding and more on work. And later on in McLean Creek this year, we brought out several rental pieces of equipment and filled a bunch of trails with gravel, as well as cut bridges and things like that. So we're definitely trying to do everything we can to save the environment and provide a trail that, again, all user groups can use. The trails of McLean Creek are used by mountain bikers. They're used by, even hikers. They're used by a lot of people.
Horseback riders are in there as well, I believe.
We're not about exclusion. Most of our very diverse member base is involved in many forms of recreation, and we pride ourselves in the fact that, we can provide that opportunity.
Excellent. So we just had a new question that came in from Pat Stanger, I believe. Is there any way we can you want to read that? I'm tongue-tied
Is there anything we can do to legally have real studies done and to have Shannon Phillips actually answer questions to represent her constituents? That's a good question. I think Russell probably has some more details on that, but there's opportunity.
Yeah, so with that question, Pat, ahohva.com, they're going to have information on there where you can contact people in your area. Your MLAs are who you need to talk to and who represent you. So depending on what area you're in, you're going to have a different MLA in every single area. We do have Shannon Phillips, so you can call her office, show up, talk to them, present your view there. So thanks for your question, Pat. Thanks for tuning in for, I guess, 45 minutes here. We're doing pretty good. We'll go through a couple more photos that you guys have. So this is kind of just a little track day that I guess we had, where you guys had a barbecue that you do to thank your members, I guess, for all the hard work that they do.
That's right. Yeah, and we believe strongly in giving back to the whole community. Sometimes that includes supporting other groups like the Wild Rose Motocross Association. We usually host our first club night of the year there, as well as we fundraise for other charitable organizations, including recently we raised money for the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. We do believe strongly in giving back to all levels. And it's well supported by our group. So
excellent. So a lot of things that you guys do can go to different basic disciplines of riding. So the quad groups and that, they kind of go through the same thing you guys do. You need to find where your trails want to go. You need to engineer them a little bit better and find around different waterways. So which we have here. This is a massive bridge section that was put in on a low-lying land area.
For sure. So some of the initiatives we've taken over the years, it hasn't always been a bad relationship with the government. We have had sessions where we had good relationships with the regional managers, and we were able to put on some sessions with the NOVAC, the North American Off-Highway Vehicle Council, where we did bring some trainers up out of the US. We paid to have them come up. We trained government people as well as our club members, as well as other OHV members across Alberta in what it takes to design and implement trail, meaningful, sustainable recreational trail systems. And so this is one of the initiatives that came out of that. We identified an area that was low-lying. It's obviously a riparian area, has a potential for erosion. So a little bit of money, a little bit of funding, and some quick engineering. It's amazing what you can do with volunteer ingenuity and initiative. You can convince people to carry big chunks of wood kilometers and kilometers through the forest, as long as it's an opportunity. Unpaid work. As long as there's an opportunity to continue to ride. And so these are the types of initiatives that we continue to do on an annual basis.
Excellent.
And some of these areas get pretty remote. As I said, we've walked in for miles and kilometers at a time to drop bridges. We've drug them in on toboggans in the middle of the winter, but we've also rented helicopter. Yeah, so that's what I was getting at.
So obviously that's a lot of money that is funded from the current, or that you had from government, that helped you get these goals done.
Yeah, for sure. Some of that money, the helicopter funding, came from some of our other fundraising initiatives. So we do put on some race events that help us fundraise for the club. We are a registered nonprofit society, so we do take charitable donations as well as our casino funding. So we do annual casinos or through their cycle. I think we're up for another one here in the next couple months. Or we just had one of the two. So we get some funding from that. The helicopter day was a good example. We had 12 locations out of McLean Creek where we were able to do bundle drops of infrastructure like this, strategically drop bundles of infrastructure out there, have crews go out and assemble it, and doing everything we can to, one, make the trails sustainable, and two, prevent erosion, right? As much as a hiker or a mountain biker doesn't like
massive bridge in an area that would normally see dry for the year, and then maybe for a month it'd be a wet month, and that's why you need a bridge like this.
Well, this is an example of some of the flood recovery work that was done. There was a lot of damage put into the environment. A lot of erosion that occurred from I believe a 50-year or 75-year event that happened a few years back in 2013. We're doing our best to provide a good usable infrastructure for people, and I think what we see is that typically if you give people a choice of riding on trails that are maintained with bridges, they will choose that every time over just unmaintained. It's more enjoyable. It is more enjoyable, and the user groups that we find, the people we run into out there that run into us sometimes quite literally when we're out on the trails, they're not looking to do damage. They're not looking to exclude other groups. They're looking to provide opportunities for them and their families to just have fun in a safe and controllable manner. Excellent. And bridges and infrastructure help that happen.
Perfect. So. Well, let's go through a couple more of these. Photos. So this is your
it's shameless plug for our race here, our race poster. This is one from a few years back. We host a race in the provincial series, and we use race as a trail building opportunity and a trail maintenance opportunity to help grow the community and again give back and provide that outlet for people.
Excellent. So this is a bunch of volunteers spent their weekends in the fall getting in there building bridges.
Yeah. So I see there's a question coming in on how do I join. I would say obviously as the Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders, we would be happy to take any members on. check out our website, Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders, RMDRA. You can just Google us. We should come up right away.
And you're on Facebook, obviously.
RMDRA. But again, just please join any club. You know, the numbers help. You know, we're trying to represent a community. I don't care if it's you know, a Ghost Riders club or a quad club. You know, all of these
you
clubs
guys are
doing the
just
same thing that we're
You're just
doing.
Southern Alberta. There are hundreds of clubs, I'm sure, throughout Alberta, all the way north,
yeah.
for different off-highway vehicles, for quads, all that kind of thing. And a lot of stuff like this can be implemented for their clubs as well.
Yeah, well, the motorcycle show this weekend. Just one more thing, like, you know, again,
Yep.
I believe most of the clubs in Southern Alberta will be at the motorcycle show this weekend. Please come down, meet some people, meet us in person, ask some questions, and
Sign up for the
get
club.
involved. You know, get involved.
Yep. Check out AOHVA.com right now if you guys are just tuning in. There's lots of information that's going on. We're with our Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders right now, and we're just kind of finishing up their session here. So this is just a little bit of the bridges that you guys actually put out on the trails.
I think that's probably, Mike, you might could probably better, but maybe 18 months worth of infrastructure sitting there on the ground. You know, we build, and to get that installed,
Yeah, over the course of the summer, that stockpile will disappear. We're in a position now where we're going to have to organize another build day. We'll get a couple lifts of lumber. Spray Lake Sawmills typically works really well with us. We work with them on some of the land advocacy side of things.
And I'm sure with
donate
the
some of this
floods that
infrastructure.
happen, these things might wash further down. You might have to come back. And
Surprisingly, through all the flood activity that we've had over the years, we haven't lost any of our equipment. Some of it has been moved slightly, but for the most part, you know, the Novak training, the somewhat good sense of judgment when you're installing this infrastructure typically keeps it in place, right? There's a reason we're putting it where it is. It's a better designed crossing. It's a better location for a crossing.
well, they're engineered trail systems.
Yeah, it's an engineered
for the most
trail
part.
system, and I've already given up a weekend to build these things. I give up another weekend to go and put it out into the landscape. I don't want to spend another weekend maintaining it.
Yeah, you want to get out there.
You want to do it once and ride it. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, what other photos do we have for you guys here?
well, you know, and I guess I'd just like to say too that, you know, we believe through proper planning and enforcement, there's a tolerance for use of the landscape. You know, we believe that there's a place out there for people. We're not trying to hurt anybody or anything. We run across wildlife all the time. The wildlife doesn't seem to be scared or run away from us. We see other user groups. Oftentimes that means taking your helmet off and saying hello, whether it's people on horseback or people hiking. You know, there really is, you know, a place out there. We go to places where there is integrated user groups. Out here, I think there's been a little bit of this divide and conquer mentality where there's gonna, you know, let one person have access and let this person not have any access. My caution would be that if you're one of the groups that, you know, maybe was granted access, whether it be in the winter or a couple of years use of your quad in the hunting season, you would probably really want to strongly think about whether that's going to still be happening 5 years from now, or whether you're going to be next on the list when they decide that you're no longer suitable for the.
And I think we need to extend that to the mountain bike community as well, right? If you look at a single track trail, an off-road motorcycle trail, it's the same design, it's the same width, it's the same infrastructure that's required for a mountain bike trail, it's the same infrastructure for a hiking trail. So if we're going to go down the trail of science and studying infrastructure or studying peer-reviewed science or literature, if you will, from other jurisdictions in the world, at some point the next level is going to be the impact of equestrian use. It's going to be the impact of mountain bike use. The density of mountain bike use out there is significant. We're all in this together. As Jeff mentioned, you go to any other jurisdiction in North America, the states just to the south of us, Montana, Idaho, Washington, all of those states have multi-use trails where they realize the restriction on the landscape or the ability of the landscape to carry so much recreational activity is limited. So therefore everybody has to share it. It's not about this quiet recreation and shoving one user out just because of a noise factor. It's about getting everybody onto the landscape, enjoying it respectfully, and enjoying it together.
I just like to one thing too. I think a lot of the science is not necessarily peer reviewed. I don't know that a lot of the science is necessarily extremely well understood, and I think very little of it applies specifically to our backcountry, to rock bottom streams, to our forests. There's a lot of science out there that says that, you know, slower forms of recreation have greater impact on wildlife, have greater impact on the environment. You know, you're in the animal space for far longer. They're also maybe more threatening than something that's just passing by and moving in a direction and continues to move on versus something that's slowly moving through the landscape. So, you know, if the concern is that there's no tolerance for use by people, I would say that's a very scary situation, and it would be a shame to live in arguably one of the most beautiful places in the world, and to be confined to cities and confined to very small areas that again degrade quickly from overuse.
Yeah, excellent. All right, thank you guys for joining us. You'll be at the Calgary Motorcycle Show this weekend, so they can check you guys out there.
Yep.
Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders, rmdra.com.
rmdra.com.
All right, check them out. We're gonna go for a little quick break, and we'll be back for our final closing, basically info sessions for you guys and how you guys can get informed, understand what's going on with the Alberta closures, and what you can do to make sure that you continue riding, camping, and enjoying the Alberta off-road. Thank you. Hey guys, thanks. We're back from a short break. I'm back with Russell Bruder with the AOHVA. We want to touch a little bit on some more topics that are going on, basic new stuff that's happening now in Alberta. Nordegg is basically kind of coming into a plan now to become a park, kind of what we were previously talking about what was happening with Castle.
I think there's a suggestion for a wildland park there as well, as what I've heard. If you kind of think of a stack of dominoes, with the Castle being the first one, the North Livingston, the Porcupines, they jumped north of north of Kananaskis country up to the Calgary side, and the dominoes are falling pretty near to Jasper National Park now. So they've got nearly all the public land use zones in Alberta are looking like they're all going to fall under this same draft management plan they pounded into us for the Castle, that they leapfrogged to the North Livingston, they leapfrogged to the Porcupine Hills, and now, like I said, you guys that are way up here by Jasper National Park are all of a sudden going, what are they doing? What's going on? Which is where we were on January 18th, when the government walked in and said, hey, provincial park in the middle of this new giant wildland park, and a proposal to ban pretty much all the current activities for the benefit of something we feel is better.
And this is going to affect hunters, OHV users, recreational users, random campers. This has basically been proposed, and it's freely available for anyone to look at the new proposal that's coming through. So our map right now, it shows Lake Louise here on the bottom. If you can see our little cursor, this is Banff National Park. It's pushing its way up through the Bighorn, and it's going to come all the way up to Nordegg, which is just west of Rocky Mountain House. and then which is right bordering Jasper Park. So this area here, folks, is kind of the next aim of parks that want, that are asked to be implemented.
And it conveniently aligns with the Yellowstone to Yukon initiative. If you overlay the two maps, you'll see most of the areas that are under effect, or the next ones on the line, or the ones that we're hearing about, the people where people are really concerned and shocked. Now's the time to get involved. Now's the time to make sure you're talking to your municipal government, you're talking to your provincial government, talk to your federal government. Get the word out there that you're opposed to this, that you don't want lobby groups running what happens where taxpayers are paying for it in this province, that we want to continue to have the rights and freedoms we've all enjoyed for decades. We want well-engineered, well-maintained trails. If you take a dirt bike trail, a quad trail, and hand it over to a pedal biker and a hiker, it's still a trail in the wilderness. And there are impacts from every human activity. Let's mitigate the impacts. Let's work together as Albertans. Let's share like all the other jurisdictions in North America do, not just the US states, the other provinces in Canada. You look at the recent announcement in Quebec, $12 million from the fees paid by OHV users given back to the OHV clubs to help maintain and improve trail access and mitigate environmental concerns.
Right, and so I've seen a lot of places they actually have, depending on what you're on, if you're on a sled trail, certain clubs kind of maintain these trails, and you have a sticker, a pass that you go on these trail systems. Is that something that should be pushed towards in Alberta? Is that kind of what we're going for?
If the government was willing to work with the OHV groups, the OHVers have always said, we're more than happy to pay our share, to make sure that we contribute, to add $10 to everybody's registration fee, whatever it takes. This government isn't willing to explore that option.
Excellent. So if you just tuned in, we're talking about basically Bighorn, and Bighorn all the way up to Nordegg is kind of slated for a proposed park that was kind of what we saw in Castle. So this is kind of what we want you guys to get on the ball. Talk to your MLAs, go to aohva.com. This is the battle for the Bighorn country. Oh, microphone.
Mine's moving?
Yeah, don't worry, guys. It's a live show. It's not scripted. We're going to have screw-ups. It's fine.
I'll try and hold still.
We're good. Yeah, don't move. So, yeah, if you guys are in the Bighorn, kind of understand that a lot of these things are going to affect you in every single way. The Bighorn Heritage ATV Society are working their butt off to kind of make sure that these areas are open to go enjoy. As you can see, massive bridges are being erected. We're not just going across these streams just because, we want to have keep the land and everything pristine, and keep everyone happy and able to enjoy it. We don't need big mud puddles or anything like that.
And well engineered to mitigate the concerns. Again, don't just lock the gate and keep everybody out because you don't like the way things were done, or you think you know the way things are being done.
Right.
Work with the people of Alberta, work with the government of Alberta. The AOHVA has been begging this government to look at their 4-point plan, and it just isn't happening. They're not willing to do meaningful consultation with Alberta.
Gotcha. And then as we can see, something like this is a group in the Bighorn. They spend a lot of time and effort out there making these trails usable. It's a family event. They have big event tents that go out, and they make sure the trails. This is a way that you can make a trail sustainable, so it gets rutted out, it drains properly, things like that. As you can see here in the lower part, this is actually the floodplain that you're staying out of. And these are just natural ruts that happen, and they're above this land on the side, so they don't want to go play in that, and they don't want to dirty any water or something like that.
Well, it's a well-engineered trail to mitigate the concern, and that solves the problem of excess sediment in a stream. If we could see some valid science that pointed specifically to what you and I did each time we passed, we'd be willing to take those concerns into effect and do something like this.
And this is happening all over Alberta, where people are building trails like this, and it's in the shadows. People don't know about it.
And it's often private organizations, clubs, groups like the one that was sitting here before.
Yep.
Whether it's quad group, whether it's snowmobile group, or a multi-use group that's multi-season, it takes a lot of volunteer hours
and a lot of effort, as we can see. Like this bridge here is no 1 hour task.
And very often the agreements they have with the government, after they raise all that money and build a bridge and put it in, that doesn't belong to the club. It doesn't belong to the people riding it. It belongs to the government. So they can literally pull tens and 20 years of work away from organizations, tens of thousands of dollars put into a trail riding area, and hand it over to an equestrian group or other users, and exclude the people who put all the time in to build it, to make sure it's engineered and properly maintained.
That's great. And then in this photo here, we can see, to the left is a watershed, and to the right is a maintained engineered trail that is sustainable and, will work for almost 100 years to come.
Yep.
Our land's ever changing. We've had massive fires, massive floods that have changed the lands far more in any way than we can even think of doing with any machinery.
Yeah, and you have to keep in perspective, you can have as many motorbikes as you want in a valley doing whatever they want. 12,000 years ago, we were covered in 3 kilometers of ice. The world has changed dramatically over hundreds of thousands of years, thousands of years, hundreds of years. The impacts have to be assessed in a realistic manner. If you're looking at science, is it applicable? Mm-hmm. Is it valid to the region you're working in? And is it socially relevant? So this Protect Your Headwaters program that everybody is hearing about, get educated. The Old Man Watershed that comes out of the South Saskatchewan, Lethbridge has got the best water quality award, I don't know how many years in a row, but apparently there's an issue with all of the feeder streams out of the castle, which is a third of that watershed, causing problems. So the headwaters are in excellent shape if the waters coming out 100 miles downstream are the highest quality that can be seen in Alberta. The University of Alberta is doing a survey right now, and it shows very specifically that the headwaters in the South Saskatchewan are drinkable, swimmable, fishable, navigable. Mm-hmm. So they rate them as excellent and very high.
Even after just the devastating floods that went through a province that changed it, and completely unrecognizable from what it was 5-10 years ago.
And those are natural events that have an effect on the landscape. Mm-hmm. We can't mitigate or stop those things, but we can certainly make sure that we come in afterwards and our trails get engineered to go around where that stream has moved, that we pull the bridge back out of the water and put it in a new position. That's what management looks like, is mitigating the impacts after something like that happens, or making sure that there is no impact or as little impact as possible.
Okay, excellent. And for if you're just tuning in, we're almost near the end of the show. We want you guys to aohva.com, go to the motorcycle show, go to the outdoorsman show. AOHVA are here with their 4-point plan and basically what's coming up in Alberta in the next few years on how it's going to affect you. We had a live question come in. We're going to answer that quick. Dave McLeod, will this be available on YouTube after those that missed it? Yes, it will. We'll have it on YouTube. We'll have it with links, everything below, with numbers you can call, sites you can go to, all your different sheets that you want to look at. If you have any other questions, we'll be looking at this feed later on as well. Visit those Facebook pages as well. AHOVA, Alberta Off-Highway Vehicle Association. RMDRA is a local group that came in today and showed us all the trail work that they do and how they engineer these trails to be sustainable and basically not touch our watersheds at all. They're up above them.
I would say join a club, join 2 clubs. Mm-hmm. Tell your friends that camp, tell your friends that go berry picking using their quad, tell your friends that go taking pictures in the mountains using their dirt bike. It's not just a single group that's going to be affected by the closures that we're seeing under the draft in the castle, and that it's working its way all the way north to Nordegg, and the removal of public land use zones in favor of whether it's a wildland park or a provincial park or some restrictive version that kicks people out, mm-hmm. that removes a large number of users for the benefit of very few for no ecologically valid reasons. You can't take a study from the Netherlands and say this is why we're closing the castle. It just doesn't work.
Which has been previously presented, and that's kind of the data they're going off of.
There's information that's been put forward that has no relevance whatsoever to the species that exist here, the terrain that we have here, and mm-hmm. it's being presented as evidence for and justification for what they're doing.
Perfect. So to end our show, how do people get involved? Where do they go? What can they do?
So get yourself educated, have a look at the AOHVA's 4-point plan, decide if you can get behind it, join a club so that you can stay informed, find out what's going on. Go to the club sites, the websites that are available out there, get a form letter, get a phone number, talk to your MLA, you can talk to your municipal government, you can talk to your provincial government, you can talk to the Minister of Environment's office, you can talk to the Minister of Tourism and Recreation's office, you can call the Premier's office. Mm-hmm. You have the right as a taxpayer to have that person listen to your correspondence.
And not only this affects Albertans, but anyone coming here, it affects them as well later on. I know a lot of people here in our province, we go down to the States, we enjoy their trail systems, and they have amazing trail systems that we can use. You go and pay a fee and you go and use that. That's kind of what we want here in Alberta, right?
A well-maintained, well-engineered trail system that's open to everybody. Love your trails. It's not just about riding my dirt bike all day long or riding my snowmobile along. It's about teaching my kids an enjoyment of the wilderness. It's mm-hmm. about we have some of the most spectacular resources in the world in the front ranges of the Rocky Mountains, and we all deserve the right to be able to go out there and enjoy them.
these changes that might be coming or proposed,
The drafts that are in
the
place
drafts
already,
that are
yeah.
coming, it's random campers are affected too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They'd like to corral us all into little areas and have a common washroom and garbage pit because there's somebody out there not responsible enough to remove their own garbage.
Yeah,
and make everybody
it's always the 1% that shows ruins the fun for everyone. Like I remember putting on events like we go around the day after and we pick up every bag of garbage we can or any little piece that we can, and it's groups like that that don't really get their voice out and show that that's what they do. So yeah, we want you guys to go online, ahohva.com. Any groups in your area, any quad groups, anything like that, we want you guys to be involved, ask them questions, make sure that they know what's going on. A lot of this stuff is not coming to light, and we want you guys to get in the know. We're going to go on a short break, and then we're going to be back with a little bit of our sponsors. Hey guys, thank you for coming to the live web show at dirtbikenews.ca and the Alberta Off-Highway Vehicle Association. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
I've said it a million times
The
tonight.
AOHVA.
Please visit the link down below. Where is it? Right there. AOHVA.com. Go on Facebook. Get involved with all your groups. And if you can, come to the motorcycle show in Calgary this weekend. Next weekend is the Edmonton Motorcycle Show, where these guys will be here as well with all their booths and everything going on. So anyways, thanks for the show, guys. Have a great night. Bye.
Mm-hmm.